My name is Jake, and I never thought I'd be the kind of person to seek revenge. I used to believe in the idea of karma, that things would work themselves out in the end. I was happy, content. Even with my job at the marketing firm, my little apartment in Santa Monica, and my girlfriend, Mia. We'd been together for almost a year. And things were perfect, or at least that's what I thought. I should have seen it coming, really. You always hear about people being blindsided, and I used to think it was bullshit, until it happened to me. It started with the promotion I'd been eyeing for months. The position as senior project manager was mine to lose. At least that's what my boss Ted kept telling me. I worked my ass off for that promotion, sacrificed weekends, and poured every ounce of my energy into the projects. I thought I had earned his trust, his respect. But Ted had other plans. One late afternoon, a few days before the promotion was to be announced, Mia called me. She'd been working part-time as Ted's personal assistant for a few months to help with her bills while she finished her degree. She told me that Ted had made an offer to her, one that she wasn't sure how to respond to. "He wants me to come on as his full-time assistant, Jake," she said, her voice tight. "Not just office stuff. He said he could use someone like me, in other ways too." I didn't understand at first. In other ways? What the hell are you talking about, Mia? She hesitated before speaking, the silence between us like a thick fog. He said I have potential. More than just a regular assistant. He said I could help him with personal projects. He wants me to travel with him, go to meetings, all kinds of stuff. I didn't need to hear any more. Ted was grooming her. The next few hours were a blur. I confronted Mia and she cried. Not because she wanted to leave me, but because she didn't know what to do. She hadn't agreed to anything, but the insinuation was clear. Ted was testing the waters. I wasn't dumb. I knew what kind of projects he was talking about. And that's when I realized the truth. Ted had been stringing me along, using me as the stepping stone to take what was mine. The promotion was never for me. It was always for him, and Mia? She was just a pawn in his game. I don't know why it hit me so hard, but it did. Maybe it was the betrayal of trust, or the shock that someone I looked up to, someone I had worked alongside for years, could do this. But what hit harder was Mia's uncertainty. She didn't know how to handle the situation, and worse, she hadn't told me about Ted's advances sooner. The thought twisted in my gut like a knife. "Jake, I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I don't know what to do. I don't want to hurt you, but I don't want to lose this opportunity either." Opportunity. That word made me sick. I wanted to scream at her, to shake her and tell her to just choose me, to choose us. But I didn't. I didn't because somewhere deep down, I knew she wasn't the one who had betrayed me. Ted was. Mia was just caught in his web, and I was the fool, the pawn in Ted's game. That night I didn't sleep. My mind raced, thoughts spinning wildly, trying to make sense of everything. I thought back to the countless hours I'd spent helping Ted with his projects. How I'd gone out of my way to prove myself. How I'd been loyal. How had I missed the signs? How could someone so close to me, someone I trusted, be so calculating? I remember staring out the window of my apartment, watching the city lights flicker in the distance, each one a reminder of what I had lost. I was angry. So damn angry. The betrayal burned like acid in my veins. It was an inferno of rage, and I knew that I couldn't let it go. That was the moment everything shifted. It was no longer just about the job or the promotion. It was about justice. About righting a wrong that had been done to me. Ted thought he could walk all over me, play me for a fool, destroy my relationship with Mia, and get away with it. But I wasn't going to let him. I don't know how long I stood there, my mind churning with plans and thoughts of revenge. But I do know one thing for sure. I would make Ted pay for everything he had done to me, everything he had taken from me. If you've ever felt that kind of betrayal, let me know in the comments. Have you ever had someone close to you shatter everything you believed? I had never been the type to make rash decisions. I've always been a planner, someone who analyzes every angle before taking action. But this was different. The more I thought about what Ted had done, the more consumed I became by the idea of revenge. It wasn't just about getting back at him. It was about taking control of a situation that he had stolen from me, about reclaiming what was mine and proving that he couldn't just play with people's lives like pawns on a chessboard. It started small. First, I began observing Ted more closely, tracking his patterns. I watched how he interacted with people, where he went, who he trusted. I learned that Ted was meticulous too. He wasn't sloppy, and he had a knack for hiding his true intentions behind a veneer of charm. I hated him for it, but I respected it. The days after Mia's confession were torturous. I could feel the emotional weight of the betrayal settling deep into my bones, like it was part of me now, like it was rewriting my identity. I spent hours at the office pretending everything was normal, acting like I didn't know that Ted had been setting his sights on Mia, and that I wasn't silently plotting to destroy everything he had built. Mia was distant. She didn't know where to stand, and I didn't blame her for it. She was caught between the past she had with me and the future Ted was dangling in front of her, like a carrot on a string. I could see it in her eyes. She wanted to make a decision, but how could she when Ted's offer was so much bigger than anything I could provide her? But I was focused on Ted now, not Mia. I knew that Ted's personal assistant was his lifeline. He relied on her for everything: schedule management, travel plans, the small details that most people would overlook but that made his life run smoothly. So I started there. I contacted a few people I knew from past projects. People who worked in the industry, people who knew things about Ted's operations. I paid them to give me details, anything that would help me understand how Ted ran his business. I dug through his social media profiles, his public records, anything that might give me leverage. Ted had made a lot of powerful connections over the years, but he had also made enemies. I knew this because I had been there in the trenches with him. I was one of his trusted employees. But I wasn't blind. By now, my anger had evolved. It wasn't just fury, it was cold, methodical, almost clinical. I could feel my emotions distilling into something sharper, something dangerous. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the one in control. I knew Ted's weaknesses. I knew his vices, his flaws, the cracks in his perfect facade. He had a secret, one that not many people knew about. His marriage was a sham. His wife, Charlotte, had been suspicious for years, and I knew for a fact that Ted had been seeing someone else. Someone younger, someone with no idea of the web he was weaving. I'd never been one to use someone's personal life against them, but this was different. I needed a way in. I needed to break him down piece by piece. I began to orchestrate the first part of my plan. I reached out to Charlotte, Ted's wife. I used the connections I had, the people who had worked with both of them at corporate events, to find out more about her. I wasn't trying to ruin her life, just make her aware. I told her about the rumors I'd heard about Ted's frequent business trips and the assistant, who seemed to be more than just a coworker. It wasn't a direct attack. I didn't need to destroy her marriage, I needed her to question it. It worked. A week later, I saw Charlotte at the office. She approached me with a tight smile, but I could see the flicker of doubt in her eyes. She knew. And that was the first victory. Next, I began undermining Ted at work. I had access to the company's internal network. Years of dedication gave me that. I started by subtly messing with the numbers on his projects, tweaking the data just enough so that things didn't add up. It wasn't enough to get him fired, it was enough to make him look incompetent. I started leaking rumors just enough to stir the pot. I wanted people to question his leadership, to wonder if he was the right man for the job. But the real masterstroke came when I decided to confront him directly. I had gathered everything I needed, the information, the leverage, the seeds of doubt. Now it was time to strike. I invited Ted to a meeting under the guise of discussing a confidential project. I was calm, too calm, and as he sat across from me, his eyes gleamed with that same arrogance I'd once admired. But there was a flicker of something else in his eyes too, nervousness. He didn't know it yet, but his world was about to crumble. I looked him straight in the eye. "Ted," I said, "I've been thinking about the promotion you promised me. The one you said I had to work for." His smile faltered for just a second. "Jake, we've been over this," he replied smoothly. "You know what's at stake. You're a valuable part of the team. But we all have our places, don't we?" I nodded, the anger simmering under my skin, but I didn't show it. "You're right, Ted. We all have our places." I leaned forward. "But I think we both know who really deserves that promotion. Don't we?" He froze. The first crack had formed. But I wasn't done yet. I had planted the seed. Now, it was only a matter of time before the rest of his world fell apart. There's a moment in every plan when you know it's all going to come together, or fall apart. For me, that moment came when Ted walked into the conference room, his usually confident smile now replaced with a faint trace of wariness. He still didn't know the full extent of my preparation, but he was beginning to sense that the ground beneath him was shifting. I could feel the satisfaction rising in me. For months, I'd been building this. Each small action, each little decision had led me to this point. This wasn't just about taking the promotion back or punishing Ted for his betrayal. No, this was about power. About control. About proving that even someone as arrogant as him could be brought down by the very thing they had tried to take from you. The meeting started innocently enough. Ted talked about the projects I had been working on, still unaware of the tiny discrepancies I'd placed in the company's system, the subtle leaks I'd initiated. I could see how his demeanor had changed in recent days, how the calm facade he had always worn now seemed a little more brittle. But I wasn't going to let him off the hook that easily. I leaned in, my voice low, controlled, but carrying the weight of everything that had been festering inside me. Ted, you're not as careful as you think. I know about the assistant. I know about the affair. For a split second, his eyes widened, just the briefest flicker of panic. It was a beautiful sight, that moment of realization when someone knows they've been caught. Jake, this isn't what you think, Ted started, his voice shaky. But I was done letting him lie to me. Oh, I think it's exactly what I think. I cut him off. I know everything, Ted. The money laundering you've been covering up with the business trips, the falsified reports that I've been fixing, and your little assistant, the one who's been warming your bed while you've been pretending to be a faithful husband. I could see him squirm. His hands, which had been confidently placed on the table, now gripped the edges. He wasn't the same Ted I used to admire. The mask was cracking. You think you're untouchable, don't you? I continued, my voice now barely above a whisper, dripping with cold fury. But I've been watching. I've been waiting. And now I'm going to make sure everyone knows what you've been doing. It felt good, too good. There was a rush that came with seeing his confidence crumble, with watching the years of power he had accumulated begin to slip away, piece by piece. He stood up abruptly, knocking over his chair in the process. You don't know what you're doing, Jake. You think you've won, but you're playing with fire. I stood too, but there was no anger in me now. Only cold detachment. No, Ted. You've been playing with fire all this time. I'm just the one who's going to make sure it burns you down. I didn't wait for his response. I didn't need to. The damage had already been done. I had already sent the evidence of his infidelity to Charlotte, his wife, along with a detailed account of the fraudulent activities I had uncovered. It wasn't just about revenge, it was about ensuring that Ted lost everything. His wife, his job, his reputation. I walked out of that meeting with a smile, but it didn't last. Later that evening, I received the first message. I'm done. We need to talk. It was from Mia. She had heard about everything about Ted, about the affair. The message came just as I was sitting down to a glass of whiskey, my hand trembling with excitement, or was it fear? I didn't want to face her. Not now. Not after everything. But I knew that I couldn't avoid it forever. The reality of what I had done, what I had set in motion, was starting to hit me. I had destroyed Ted's world, but in the process I was beginning to destroy mine as well. The text from Mia was the first real acknowledgement of the damage I had caused. I read her message again. I wasn't sure if she was angry at me, disappointed, or just lost in the same turmoil I was. I had used her too. Used her to get to Ted. To get back at him. But that was the truth of it, wasn't it? People like Ted didn't just betray you, they made you betray your own principles, your own moral compass. And once you crossed that line, it was hard to come back. The next morning, I watched Ted give his apology to the team. It was pathetic. He stood there, eyes bloodshot, stumbling through a speech he clearly hadn't prepared. Everyone in the room knew it was just a cover-up. And that was the second moment of vindication. He had no idea what was coming next. I sat there watching him fall apart, feeling nothing. It wasn't satisfaction anymore, it was hollow, like I had emptied out a part of myself to get here. Was this what I really wanted? But there was no turning back now. The machine had started and I was its driver. Has there ever been a moment when you took control of a situation, only to realize it might be spiraling out of your hands? Leave a comment and let me know your thoughts. Does revenge ever truly give you what you think you need? There's a strange thing that happens after you've crossed a line you never thought you'd cross. At first, there's the rush, the adrenaline. The heady satisfaction of seeing the person who betrayed you finally pay for what they've done. You tell yourself it's just what they deserve, that you're doing the world a favor, that you're the one in the right. But then the feeling starts to wear off and it leaves something behind. For me, that feeling was emptiness. It wasn't the satisfaction I had imagined. It wasn't the sweet taste of revenge I had built up in my mind. No, it was cold, hollow. A lingering void. I watched Ted's professional life crumble over the next few days, but with each news story, each whispered conversation around the office, I felt myself sinking further into something I couldn't quite name. His wife, Charlotte, was devastated. She had confronted him, of course, just like I knew she would. The gossip spread through the company like wildfire. Ted's world began to implode, but strangely, it didn't feel like victory to me anymore. It felt like a weight on my chest. By the time I saw him in the office for the last time, it wasn't with the anger or resentment I thought would be there. I had done everything I set out to do. I had exposed him for what he was, but in doing so, I had revealed something about myself that I hadn't anticipated. I saw Ted in the hallway. His once sharp, tailored suit now seemed worn, a faint shadow of the man he had been. His face was drawn, his eyes dull. There was no fire in him now, just the remnants of a man who had been stripped of everything he thought he owned. He passed me in the hallway without saying a word. He didn't even look at me. There was nothing left to say. I wanted to confront him, to see the guilt, the humiliation, to force him to acknowledge that I had done this to him. But I didn't. Because in that moment I realized something. It didn't matter. The revenge had worked. He had lost everything. But so had I. Mia, who I had once been certain would see me as the hero of this twisted story, was now a shadow of the person I remembered. She wasn't angry with me, not directly. But I could feel it, the distance between us, the way she avoided eye contact, the silence between us. She didn't understand why I had done it, or maybe she just didn't want to. She never even said it out loud, but I could see it in the way she looked at me. "I don't know if I can forgive you," she had said a few days ago when we sat down to talk. "Forgive me?" I had repeated, almost incredulously. "You're still stuck on that? You don't get it, Mia. I had to do it." "But why? Why did you have to destroy him, destroy everything? Us?" Her voice cracked, and in that moment, I saw the truth in her eyes. She didn't see me as the man who had protected her. She saw a man who had torn her world apart to get back at someone else. That was the worst part, the part that ate at me every day. I had thought I was taking control, that I was the one calling the shots, but in the end I had destroyed everything in my path, including the woman I loved. Ted wasn't the only one who had lost something. The company? It wasn't the same anymore. People avoided me, whispered behind my back. My reputation, once untouchable, now hung by a thin thread. I wasn't a hero. I wasn't even a victim anymore. I was just another casualty in a war I had started. The promotion I'd worked for? Gone. No one trusted me anymore. The title I'd thought would validate me now seemed insignificant in comparison to what I had lost. So there I was, alone. I would tell you that it felt good to watch Ted lose everything, that the emptiness was a small price to pay for the satisfaction of seeing him destroyed, but that would be a lie. The truth is, I didn't know who I was anymore. Was I the man who had been wronged, or the man who had done the wrong? The consequences were too great. And they weren't just external. They weren't just about Ted's ruined reputation or Mia's silence. They were internal. The guilt, the regret, the lingering feeling that I had traded a piece of my soul for a moment of fleeting power. And that's when it hit me. Revenge doesn't come with a clean slate. It comes with a cost. A price that isn't always paid in money or relationships, but in something deeper. Something I didn't fully understand until it was too late. It's been 6 months since I executed my plan. 6 months of walking around in a haze trying to figure out who I am now. And I've spent a lot of time thinking about what I did to Ted, to Mia, to myself. I tell myself that I did what I had to do. I tell myself that I was justified, that I was seeking justice. But every time I look in the mirror, I see someone I don't recognize. The face staring back at me isn't the same one that used to dream of promotions and happy endings. Ted's gone now, completely. He was forced out of the company, shunned by every one of his connections. The affair? Exposed. His marriage was dissolved, and the woman he was seeing, she bailed as soon as she realized he was no longer the golden boy he once was. It's funny. For all the time I spent planning his downfall, I never stopped to think about how much it would affect me. How it would change the way I saw the world. Charlotte, his wife, moved on. She left the city, started a new life, and I never heard from her again. I don't blame her. I would have done the same. Ted had destroyed everything he had, and she was smart enough to escape before the wreckage swallowed her whole. Mia? Well, Mia's moved on too. She left me a few weeks ago. She didn't say much. No grand speech. No dramatic goodbyes. She just packed up her things and left. The silence between us had become unbearable. She knew I wasn't the man I used to be. She knew that the person who had exacted revenge on Ted was not the person she fell in love with. And who could blame her? How could anyone love someone who had torn down everything in his path for something as empty as a momentary victory? I keep telling myself it's her loss, that she couldn't understand why I did what I did. But deep down I know the truth. She was right to leave. I wasn't the man she thought I was. And I didn't even know who I was anymore. And that's the thing about revenge, it doesn't just destroy the other person. It destroys you too. I used to think that getting back at Ted would be the final chapter of my story, that everything would be right again. But I was wrong. No amount of ruined careers or exposed secrets can bring back what's been lost. You can't undo the damage you've done, and you can't fix the pieces of yourself that you've broken in the process. The worst part? I still don't feel any satisfaction. The victory I thought I'd taste never came. Maybe it never will. Every time I think about Ted, I don't feel vindicated. I feel empty. Like I've wasted a part of myself chasing something that was never really mine to claim. I don't know what happens now. I don't know if I'll ever feel like I've made up for what I've done, or if I even can. Maybe one day I'll find a way to forgive myself. Maybe I'll learn to live with the person I've become. But I don't have the answers. What I do know is this: revenge is a dangerous thing. It doesn't give you what you think you need. It only takes. And when it's over, all you're left with is the aftermath, the wreckage, and the pieces of yourself that you lost along the way. So, what was the point of all of this? What did I gain? The answer is simple: nothing. Nothing at all. But I'm here now, and I'll keep moving forward, even if I don't know where I'm headed. I'll keep living with the consequences of my choices, because that's the only thing left. And maybe one day, when the dust settles, I'll finally be able to look in the mirror and recognize the person I've become. But for now, I'm just trying to survive the silence I created. Has there ever been a time when you sought revenge and it didn't bring the closure you expected? Maybe it made things worse, or maybe it didn't change anything at all. Share your thoughts in the comments. Does revenge ever truly heal the wounds it was meant to?